Welcome to the Wealth Conversation podcast. This podcast is for you if you believe that wealth is so much more than just money. At the Wealth Conversation, we believe that wealth encompasses our physical, spiritual, mental, social, and financial well-being. I'm your host, Tsitsi Mutiti, and I will be having conversations with financial experts and people just like you and me who are on the journey to building lasting generational wealth. If this resonates with you, then I encourage you to hit the subscribe button so you get notifications of when our next episode will go live. For now, let's get into this week's conversation. Welcome to the Wealth Conversation podcast. In this episode, I am pleased to introduce you to Dineo Ledwaba Chapman. Dineo acts as a personal CFO to her clients, and today we'll be having a conversation around pensions and retirement planning. Welcome, Dineo, to the Wealth Conversation podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. I've been waiting for this conversation for years, actually, and glad it's finally happening.
Yes.
Now, Dineo, please introduce yourself to the listeners and tell us what we need to know about you.
Okay. Well, my name is actually Dineo.
Oh, really?
That's
okay.
how you pronounce it.
Yes.
But most people call me Dineo, so
Yes.
it's absolutely fine. I'm a financial planner who specializes in retirement planning and wealth planning, predominantly working with professional women. So these are women who are in the law, work within the law, senior managers and executives. And yeah, as you said, being their personal CFO, really, sort of helping them navigate through those, major financial decisions. Outside of my working life, I am a mum to two amazing children, aged 10 and 5, who keep me mega busy outside of work.
That's amazing. So you are literally living the same life as your clients, building a career, managing family. And I think we'll definitely be touching on those different stages in people's lives. Now, working in financial services and dealing with individuals and their money, one thing that I've come across, in fact, or should I say a question that comes up more often than not, is around pensions. What is a pension? I don't understand my pension. What am I supposed to do with my pension?
Yeah. How
How much is enough? Let's start at the beginning. What is a pension?
Well, a pension is a tax-saving an investment vehicle, which enables you to save your money for the long term with a hope of utilizing those funds to fund your retirement income. So another way of seeing it is seeing your pension as a bucket, as an example, as an analogy. So you can see it as a bucket. That's your pension, which you sort of pour water into it throughout the years. So as you pour the water in, that represents your contributions, that represents your employer contributions, tax relief that's available as well. And throughout the years, the water increases in that bucket. And that's due to investment growth. Okay. And then when the time comes for you to kind of decide, I want to stop working or, semi-retire.
Yeah.
I want to utilize, my income for my pension. So you then stop putting water into the bucket and you start drawing water out of the bucket. So water to fund your lifestyle, your hobbies, your interests at that time, really. So it's a great analogy to kind of see it like that.
Yeah, I love that. I love that analogy that you're pouring water into this bucket so you can turn on the tap later on.
Yeah.
So presumably we've got other buckets for other stages of our lives. So whilst we're pouring water into this bucket, which is for later on in life, what are the other things that people should be doing, just briefly?
Yes. I mean, retirement planning and pension planning is for the longer term. So while you're thinking ahead, today is also happening. And before you know it, the next 5 years become next year, and the next 15 years become the next 5 years. So it's important that, as well as, looking ahead, planning ahead, that you're quite active in what's happening today in your day-to-day life or in the immediate future. So there are other investment vehicles such as ISAs that you can use for the medium, to longer term, where you can easily access that. Obviously, if it's short term, putting your money in just an ordinary savings account is also fine for the longer term. For the shorter term.
For the short term. So I love that whilst you're planning for the future, today is actually happening. That is such a great reminder that, we have to be focusing on both stages really, and making the most of whatever actions we're taking. Now, retirement planning, where does that fit in with what we've been talking about so far? Pensions, planning for today, but also for tomorrow. What does retirement planning entail, and why is it important?
Well, retirement planning is a strategic process in order to put that planning in place. So it's planning for today, for the medium term, and also for the longer term, which is where retirement planning comes into place. So when we're looking at that strategy and that process of retirement planning, we're factoring in different aspects. So the first thing we'd look at is your retirement goals. So, what sort of lifestyle would you like in retirement? Where would you like to live in retirement? So we really have a clear picture of what you would like to see in retirement and the sort of a lifestyle that you have. So that's one aspect of it. The other aspect is looking at, well, what are all the various assets that you currently have or could potentially have in order to provide you with that income? So this is when we review your pensions, your savings, your investment planning. And so ensuring, obviously, the investment element that your wealth is growing, your money is growing through time, and we're protecting that growth as well. And also looking at, well, this is what you'd like to achieve in retirement. This is how much ideally you'd like to have as an income. But realistically, when can that date happen? So we look at that as well. So all of those different aspects kind of make up the retirement planning strategy process.
Yeah, I can see why we all need a CFO in our lives. I mean, I work in financial services and I'm sort of thinking, wow, I need to do some of this stuff.
Yes.
I'm doing some of it, but it's not really all joined up.
Sure.
And I love the way you sort of talk about retirement planning. It's a very joined up process. Again, going back to what you said, thinking about today and, the future, but how does what you're doing today impact your future planning and the amount of water you have in the bucket?
Yes. Oh. I mean, they always say, your future self will thank you for the decisions that you're making today, Yeah. So it's important. It's important.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's sometimes very difficult, especially when you're younger and starting out maybe in the working world or even business world, to think 10, 15, 20 years ahead, maybe even 40 years ahead, depending on how early you start. So I think so far what you've said speaks to the fact that it's really important for people to seek advice whenever they can and really have an overview of everything.
Yes.
Yeah. Now you work with women, mainly professionals. And what are some of the important things that that they should be doing or thinking about, or the things that you encourage them to do in terms of their careers and planning for the future?
I think the major thing is just being proactive. Be an active participant in your financial life. I always say to clients, money is just a tool to enable you to, experience the life that you so rightfully deserve, to aid this amazing life journey that we have. So be proactive, because money is a huge part of that for making that happen. So I think that's the first thing. Be proactive and understand where you are, have clarity with where you are today financially. Because when you have that clarity, you'll then know, well, where there's gaps that need filling, reminders of things that you haven't even thought of. So I'd say definitely be proactive, and just be curious. Be curious about your financial life. Get involved.
Yeah. You mentioned gaps. Mm-hmm. What are some of the gaps that come up, especially for women, when it comes to one, retirement planning, but also just putting water in that pension bucket?
Mm-hmm. Well, a lot of us, male and females, we do have a pension gap, but women mostly so. And that's because we face unique challenges that maybe our counterparts may not face, such as we're living longer. We're more likely to have career breaks, and also our lifelong earnings might be less due to the gender pay gap. So all of those things impact, how much we're able to save, how much we're able to contribute. So it means for us that our money needs to last longer, and our money needs to work harder for us. So it's all about, the early planning, being proactive, the thing I was talking about, being proactive, planning early and ensuring that, you're meeting any potential gaps. Because with time off work, with career breaks, it means that you're contributing less into your pension, or actually you're not contributing at all. So through time, you'll begin to realize that actually that time off work that I took off has created a gap. So my pension sort of savings gap has increased through time. So it's a big one.
Yeah. I've had conversations with people who are starting the journey into motherhood, mm-hmm. and their main worry is really childcare. Mm-hmm. Thinking about coming back to work, because obviously they need the money for day-to-day mm-hmm. living, but also that means that they have to have someone looking after the child.
Yes.
And childcare, yes. especially here in the UK, is so expensive. Mm-hmm. I mean, when I had my child, I was living in Zimbabwe, and I had mm-hmm. someone looking after her 24/7 because the system is set up around that, and it's also you've got family around you, but. Yes. In more developed countries, it's yes. not that easy. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people have gone with the solution, especially if they're in a relationship. Mm-hmm. So there's two people working. Mm-hmm. The solution has been that the woman mm-hmm. tends to be the one who stops working. Mm-hmm. And it's not just for the first year. It can be for up to 5 years. Yeah. And so that creates that pension gap that you're talking about. Mm-hmm. Is there anything that can be done either by the person who's taken the time off work, or mm-hmm. the couple, the family unit mm-hmm. as a whole, to minimize that pension gap?
Yes, I think everything is small steps. Small steps lead to powerful impacts. So even if you're able to save the little that you can whilst you're off work, that's absolutely fine. At least you're doing something towards it. Mm-hmm. And obviously, if you go back to work, you may consider contributing, making, a larger contribution into your pension in order to kind of make up. Some of the ways to make up is to, if there's a pay rise or if there's a bonus, pumping in more money into your pension. But if you're still home and your partner is able to do so, they can contribute into a pension on your behalf.
Oh, okay.
So that is a possibility as well. Anybody can contribute into anybody's pension, really.
Gosh, I wonder how many people know about and take advantage of it. So any sort of extra or excess income can go into your spouse's pension. Mm-hmm. That's amazing. Mm-hmm. And then obviously when in this case I'm talking about women, when the woman goes back to work, she can mm-hmm. top up as much as she can to catch up.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's such an important fact, mm-hmm. Because as you say, women are living longer. And I think the statistic is that women live, in the UK at least, live 4 years longer than our male counterparts. But I've said many times that I work with women whose husbands passed away 10, 15 years ago. So it's, in reality, it's much longer, a longer time period where you're having to utilize whatever you've saved for your future self. And that longevity comes with things like illnesses as well, which add to the costs.
Absolutely, yes.
In terms of your work with women and just financial planning in general, what would you say have been the key things that your clients and people have done to just ensure that they are ready for retirement?
Consistency has been the key thing. You know, if you are already saving, either in a pension or in another investment or savings vehicle, it's that consistency. Little, like I said, small steps, you know, have powerful impacts. So the consistency of saving and contributing when you're able, and also seeing the benefits that you have as well, because there are so much benefits that are around us that we may not be aware of. So for example, when you have a workplace pension, you might just assume, well, I'm just contributing a bit and then my employer's contributing a bit. So there is kind of a need there for people to understand their pensions, their workplace pensions. So that's one of the things that I do when I'm reviewing a client's kind of pension planning. I review. Talking about more money going in, can you explain a bit more about the tax credits that you get? Is it tax credit or relief. Tax relief? Exactly. Yeah. The tax relief that people get when they actually put money into their pension. Yeah. So the government is for you in this regard. You know, I love that. They want you That's the save. One time. Yes. They want you to save for the future. They are concerned about your future and that you won't have enough. You know, they are doing what they can with the state pension savings. And so what they've decided to do is, okay, so if you contribute, depending on what your marginal rate of income tax is, we'll contribute 20%, right? As a minimum. Okay. Right? So, you know, if you contribute £80, we'll top it up to make it £100. And obviously, if you're a higher rate taxpayer or an additional rate taxpayer, you can get pension tax relief at 40%, additional 40%, additional 45%. Obviously, those figures you'd have to, if you're a higher rate taxpayer, you can get an additional 20% on top of the 20. Right. And then if you're an additional rate taxpayer, you can get an additional 25% on top of the 20. Okay. So you'd have to claim that via self-assessment. That's for the higher and additional rate. Right. But for if you are a basic rate taxpayer, so that's people who are getting taxed 20% on their income, it's automatic. You don't necessarily have to do a self-assessment. That is correct. Or a non-taxpayer. Oh, okay. So with children's pensions, right? Okay, children can have pensions as well? Children can have pensions, yes. Okay. They certainly can. So they can have the maximum they can contribute, or you can contribute in for them, is $3,600. So that includes the tax relief that's available. So you'll only really need to contribute, I think, around £2,800. And then they'll top it up. Gosh, that's relief. Amazing. I mean, you know, that's, and I guess if you've got the bandwidth in terms of funds, that's a great way to start that generational wealth transfer and building for the next generation. So you've said that with pensions, they are really long-term kind of savings plan, you know, for when you enter retirement. What are the rules that people should know about accessing pensions? Because I know one of the things that stops people sometimes to contributing to their pension is they're thinking about the here and now. They want the money now because they will only be able to access the funds in their pension, you know, 10, 20, 30 years down the line. So
in terms of accessing, what are the rules and at what point can people access their pensions?
Yeah, well, the state pension at the moment, you can access it at age 66.
Okay.
That's going up to age 67. And then at one point it will go up to age 68.
Yeah. And
right?
maybe 100 at this rate.
I know. So you can have a look, .gov website, to have a look at your state pension age. So you just put in your date of birth and they'll work it out for you in terms of the month, the year, and the age you're able to access it. So a lot of us, so I'm in my 40s, so my state pension age is 68. Okay, so I'll be able to access that then. So with a personal pension, it's 55, but that's going to increase to 56 between, I think, 2026 and 2028. So those are the ages that you have in mind. So you can't access it. So it's money, as soon as you put in and contribute into it, you can't really access it, which is a good thing.
Yeah,
because then you're allowing it to grow over time.
Yeah. So you can't turn on that tap until you're sort of 55 and 60 whatever or 70 or whatever the age
whatever
will be.
age it will be with our kids, 75.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yes.
I think that pensions are such a great product in terms of the fact that I view them as a long-term savings plan.
Yeah.
One, as you said, the money's locked in there for until 55 and then into your 60s. So I guess it gives us time to be able to plan what we're going to do with the funds. But as you've said, you need to be consistent in adding into the pensions. Is there a downside though?
To pensions?
To pensions.
Oh, they're so sexy. That's just how I just think pensions are sexy. They're just such powerful vehicles, you know? They allow you to be disciplined. I just think, you're saving money aside that you're not going to touch. You're allowing it to grow and you're saving for the future. They're just such a powerful tool. So personally, I can't think of any downsides. I can think more upsides than anything else.
Yeah.
But obviously there's investment risks that come with any type of investing. But in terms of helping you plan for the future, passing down the funds later on if you wish, on death to your dependents, you can do so. So it's I think the benefits far outweigh any downsides to them.
Yeah, 100%. I couldn't agree with you more on that. We've spoken a lot about employees, so people who are employed working for someone else. There is a growing number of people out there who have become self-employed, starting up small businesses and hoping to grow them into bigger businesses.
Yes.
Are there any differences in how they should be approaching pensions compared to people who are employed?
So as a self-employed, your retirement planning, your pension planning, the onus is solely on you.
Okay.
So going back to being proactive, you have to be the one. Whereas, if you're employed, you get the nudge from your employer. They're advocating it and they're going to, contribute some into your pension. But if you're self-employed, you're literally on your own. So there are private pensions, private personal pensions that you can open up. And obviously, depending on how much, income you've made, you can either set up a monthly direct debit, regular contribution, or a lump sum contribution. It's up to you. But it literally is left up to your device, really, to put one in place. You'll still get the government tax relief, so the government will still contribute their share. But it's you and the government really who are contributing into it. You don't have the third party of an employer contributing into it.
Yeah. So a lot of proactiveness needs to be done when it comes to the self-employed people. Is there help out there for self-employed people? Because I can just imagine it being a minefield. Well, I can't imagine. I know that pensions are a minefield.
Yes.
And, working in financial services, I know that to be able to even give advice on a pension, you have to do a whole load of exams. So, this lady here has gone through the ringer when it comes to be able to talk about pensions. So a self-employed person trying to navigate the pension world, you know, where would you say they should start, just to make sure that they don't waste time, they don't make mistakes, and some of these mistakes could be costly. Where would a self-employed person start?
The internet. It's absolutely great. I mean, the resources that are out there are fantastic. So if you just Google, let's say, for example, pension for a self-employed individual, you'll get all the providers on there who have their own links to kind of educate you on, you know, opening up a pension as a self-employed individual. If you're not sure, for example, which provider, there's some great ones out there, then is it Money Savings Expert?
Yes.
That's quite a good platform. So if you go on there, they'll have a list of providers and they'll kind of give you all the different details on them in terms of the fees that you'll pay, the minimum contributions, etc. So at least then you can kind of have your own little research that you can start from, looking at the various providers. But also if you've got an accountant, you know, most accountants have got a partnership with a financial advisor.
Okay.
So they, you know, is ask your accountant, see if they've got a financial advisor they can recommend for you. And we'll be happy to look at that for you to see what's the best way to structure it for you.
Yeah. It's interesting when you think about people who are self-employed or running businesses, because they focus so much on the business and doing that thing that will help their customers, you know, whether it's producing a product, selling a product or a service.
Yes.
And it's only maybe later on when it's time for business exit, when they really start thinking about what does the next stage of my life look like.
Yes.
And actually what you're saying is you need to be preparing early on before you even get to the business exit stage. You start preparing early on for retirement or whatever the next stage is going to look like.
Well, the future is unknown. The markets are unknown. You don't know what the latest trends are going to be by the time that you decide to sell your business. You may not sell the business at the fee that that you hope to receive it. So, you know, for definitely kind of pre-sale planning as early as you can with a financial advisor to kind of work out the numbers with you. So we'll be able to look at things like, well, how much ideally do you need to sell the business for in order for it to fund your desired lifestyle at retirement? So at least you have a compass, you have clarity, and you have peace of mind to know, actually, so this is the figure ideally I should be working towards selling my business for. Should you wait until you sell the business to plan for retirement? Absolutely not. Should you open up a pension as well while you are thinking ahead? Absolutely. Absolutely. Because there are some tax benefits as well for business owners. You know, the contributions that you make are treated as, you know, tax exempt. So you've got you save on corporation tax as well on the pension contributions. There's a whole lot of benefits that are available. But as with whether you're employed or self-employed, the earlier you start, the better. The better,
yeah. I love what you said about compass, clarity, and peace of mind. I mean, who doesn't want that, right? we all want that, you know, something that will say, go there, do this, you know, because at the end of the day, this is the picture that, you know, you'll produce, and, you know, then, gives you peace of mind to continue building the business, or if you're an employee, just focus on your career because things are on autopilot. And if you've got an advisor such as yourself, or shall I say, if you have a personal CFO, then, you know, you've got your CFO just looking at everything and, you know, alerting you when maybe there's action that's needed to be taken. I love that.
I say to my clients, I don't have control over the markets. So if you're looking at me to kind of, you know, guarantee that area, I cannot guarantee that. But what I can guarantee is that you will have that clarity, you know, as to where your financial life future is heading. You will have that peace of mind to know that your investments are where they should be. They're aligned to your own personal investment risk. And you'll have the confidence, because once you have those two things, you do have confidence over your finances. You're in control at that point.
Such a good point. As an investment manager, I've found that the clients who can withstand any ups and downs in the markets are the ones who really understand the plan, really understand the strategy, and are a part of that plan. It's not me sort of saying, this is what we're going to do, and then they disappear. We engage. Yes, I do most of the work, but then we are engaging and making sure, you know, that at review time, I'm making sure that everything is aligned with their objectives, with what they see for the future, what they want to do for themselves, the family, etc. And then we make those adjustments. So it, you know, I guess it is so important to have someone sense check the plan for you. Absolutely. And this is where someone like you comes into play and is so important. On that point, there is a perception that seeking advice from a financial advisor or financial planner is expensive and very costly. I am of the opinion that compared to the mistakes or the amounts that you could lose by not seeking advice and just having someone put together a plan for you, it's worth the cost. And it's not actually that expensive, but there is a perception that, you know, to have someone look over your finances is quite costly. What would you say to someone who is considering having someone review their finances and help them come up with a plan, you know, get some clarity and peace of mind? And also, what are the things that people what's the information that you need to be able to put together that plan? I think the first thing is, if you're looking for a financial planner, it's always good to ask the people around you, because you'll be surprised how many do have a financial planner that they could recommend to you. And I always say it's because it's such a long-term relationship, it's important that you need to be aligned with the financial advisor, because we're in a privileged position to know everything about you, your finances, your family secrets, your dreams, your hopes, everything. So it's important that you know you have confidence with that individual. So even if your friends or your work colleague have recommended somebody, I'd always say, see at least 3 financial advisors, because I guarantee they'll all work slightly different. You know, some focus just on the advice. So they'll focus on just the products. Others focus more on the planning as well as the investments. So they plan looking at a more life-centered viewpoint into your financial planning. So you need to see what resonates most with you, really, when you are seeking out a financial advisor. And in terms of costs and fees, there are different. So ask, at the first meeting that you have, most financial advisors have, a free discovery meeting that you can have with them. That's an opportunity for you to ask questions about how they work, their processes, their investment philosophy, for example, and also their fees. But like I said, nothing is free. Oh, that is true.
People need to realize that if it's really important to you and it's of value to you, and you can see the value the difference it will make into your life, you will pay for it.
Yeah. I certainly think that there is an educational piece that the industry needs to do around that, because more often than not, you really discover that when you look at the bigger picture, the cost, the benefits outweigh the cost, really. And I can't put a price on my peace of mind, to be honest. I can't put a cost on the time it would save me just to have a plan when I've put a plan for whatever, not just money or just even running the household. When I've got a plan, gosh, you don't have to think about it anymore, because things tend to go on autopilot. As you probably realize, I love things on autopilot because I've got so much going on in my life.
Yes. I mean, see with this, as a financial this way, as a lawyer or a barrister going to court. So every single year, you have a court date that you need to present your case. You need to review stuff. You need to, bring up a good argument. So are you telling me that every single year you want to go to court, prepare all of that evidence and present it? Or why don't you just get a barrister to do it for you, with you? supporting you. So it's the same with financial planning as well. Like you said, that peace of mind that you have, that somebody's there as your personal CFO, looking after the family wealth, finances, and ensuring that, you're, as a family or individuals, you're able to live your desired lifestyle.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And what are some of the things, what's the information that you need to be able to put together a robust plan for an individual or their family?
Absolutely everything. I need to know everything.
I'm not ready to tell you everything.
Everything. Okay.
Yeah.
So the most robust financial plans are because the input has been robust, right? So we start off with my process anyway, we started with exploring what your goals, your vision for yourself and your family, your values, just to really understand that, this thing we called life, it's so precious. So you've decided today to come and see me. You have a life that's past, you have the current today. So I need to understand how I need to understand the role that I need to participate in order to make sure that your future life as you journey is exactly how you'd want it to be. So I need to understand that, what's important to you, your values, etc. So we once we've had that discussion, we then kind of define those goals and make them clear. So for example, it's not just about, when I retire and I'm hoping this, that, the other. It's really, really drilling down and me helping you drill down the ideal income. We have a figure, ideal kind of retirement age, that we're working on today. So once we have that, then I then go away and do all the research. I review everything that you have. I put together a financial plan. I put together a cash flow for you. So I map out your future life and all the kind of the milestones that you and your family are going to have and the costs to it. So I cut everything out and plan it. And then once I've done that, I then present my recommendations to you. And then recommendations will include obviously reviewing with you all your assets, reviewing my financial advice in that respect. It just changes everything. So the accuracy of the information has to be there, really.
Yeah. You've touched on a few times about reviewing, whether it's just reviewing the pension, what you're doing with that, or reviewing your retirement plan, or whatever plan you have for your finances and, for your finances today and in the future. How important would you say is the review process, whether you're doing it with someone, your personal CFO, or whether you're doing it on your own?
It's so important because life is not static. Life changes in days, months, and years, right? So a lot can happen in a year. So I would say it's important to review at least once a year. Or if there are major life changes. So if you're changing employer, if you've got a promotion or a family milestone, a birth in the family. So any major milestones that have financial implications, there's a time to review, as a prompt to review, but at least I'd say once a year.
I think that's very, very good advice. And that's also what I say to my clients. And I try and have a meeting with them at least once a year. Because as you've rightly said, life happens. What's the saying now? Life is lifing.
While you're making plans.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. So we have to really be on top of things. I've really enjoyed and taken on so many points, that I can actually implement. And some of them have also been reminders of what I should be doing, but what I should be reminding family and friends to be doing. And actually what I'll probably do is just forward this podcast episode to them and say, watch this. But in summary, what would you like listeners to be left with when it comes to them thinking about pensions and retirement planning?
Start early. The earlier you start, the better. So, if your son or daughter are starting their careers, their first job, advocate for them to find out what benefits they have at work, especially in terms of pensions. Because the earlier you start, the longer the money has to grow. And but don't worry, if you haven't managed to start in your 20s and you're in your 40s and your 50s, it's never too late. Okay, because with meaningful planning, even at that age, that could make a difference. So I'd say definitely planning early is essentially key. Contribute as much as you can. So even if you are off work, maternity leave, or you're just having a career break or still working part-time, if you're able to do so, even if it's just, £20 a month, just to keep you going. And then use up allowances that you have as well. So if you go back to work and you've received a bonus, or for anybody who's received a bonus or your pay rise, just find out if you're able to maximize the amount that you're able to in that tax year. Or you can use what we call carry forward and fund 3 previous tax years if you haven't maximized those. So definitely So
that's pension contributions,
yes,
right? Yeah.
Pension contributions. Be proactive, be curious, learn. There's so much out there, so many resources out there. Investments aren't scary. They're only scary if you don't understand. So, educate yourself, have that confidence to really go ahead and save for the future. You deserve it. I really, really say that you deserve the financial success. You deserve the financial freedom.
I absolutely love that. Gosh, and it is so true. If you think about everything we go through in our lives, the ups and the downs, the journey, the actual journey to that point of retirement, there's so much. And at the end of it, every single person deserves to have a comfortable, fulfilling retirement.
Yes. And another thing the last thing I would say is, don't wait until retirement to live. Don't say, I'll do it then. When I retire, I would. Tomorrow isn't promised. Your retirement isn't promised. Today is what matters. So actually, it's about, as I said, planning for today, planning for tomorrow, but also living for today as well.
That's fantastic. So fantastic. I have to just ask one more question because you touched on it in your summary. And that is, people who haven't contributed to a pension and feel like it's too late, what can they do? And I'm talking about maybe people who are thinking of starting in their 50s, early 50s, or maybe they've had pensions previously, don't know where they are, and want to try and maximize as much as they can.
I think the first thing is to note, like I said before, it's never too late. It's never too late for anything. As soon as you realize something, get proactive in that moment. So I would say for them to seek advice. I think depending on the age that you're at, if you're thinking of retiring in 10 years or 15 years time, seek financial advice. You will get that clarity as to how much you'd need to put into a pension or any other savings vehicle today in order to provide you with the, future income that you deserve. And also have a look at your state pension forecast. So you have got a pension that's there potentially if you've contributed enough national insurance throughout your working life. So, you do have some guarantees there through that. And it's obviously just making up the shortfall through seeking advice and help and guidance in that.
So there is hope. And also it's just about clarity, right?
Absolutely.
Getting the clarity and understanding what you have and then building from there. That's fantastic. There is one question that I ask all my guests as we end the podcast. And so the question is, what one wealth conversation would you like everyone to have?
I think it's one question actually that I'd like everybody to ask themselves. What would I want, or what do I want my money to do for me? Because that question alone moves the whole conversation around money from spreadsheets and products, and it moves it to one of purpose. Right? So have that conversation with yourself. Answer that question. Speak to your financial advisor about it. Speak to your spouse about it, your family about it. What do I actually want my money to do for me? Because when you put purpose, when you put meaning to money, it's powerful.
That is amazing. I mean, I have to say, I do every question that my guests give are just absolutely phenomenal. But I think this is the best one yet. That is, what do I want my money to do for me?
Yes.
That is a very thought-provoking question. Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, Dineo, for coming onto the podcast and sharing so much wisdom, so many gems, so much advice, and giving us those thought-provoking tips and questions that will, I hope, get listeners taking action and not being afraid of seeking advice, and also just being confident that they deserve a fantastic retirement, but also they should be living in the now as well.
Absolutely.
So I'm hoping that from this episode, people will be filling those buckets.
As much water as possible.
Water going into those buckets, no drought or anything. Just fill those buckets so that when it's time to turn the tap on, there's actually some water left for the next generation.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. Before we end the episode, if anyone wants to get in touch with you or learn more about you, where should they go?
LinkedIn is the best place.
Okay.
So I'm there. So connect with me, send me a message. So that's the best platform.
I'll put your LinkedIn profile, the link to your LinkedIn profile in the show notes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dineo, for being on the Wealth Conversation podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.